Senator Thangwa.
Very well. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also comment on this issue. Although, Madam Speaker, I don't know whether to support, to annul, or to oppose the annulment, Madam Speaker. I'm a little bit confused because of two issues. One, and it's what was raised by Senator Omogeni and maybe Senator Sifuna. When you see the senators from the government side bringing a motion to annul something from government, sometimes you ask yourself so many questions, Madam Speaker. So I'm trying to think what could be the motive. Because, Madam Speaker, if you read the report says that the PS for Environment wrote to the same committee on 25th of July.
Senator Cherargei, what is the point of order?
He has started again.
Madam Speaker, and it is on record, point of order is a right. Madam Speaker, standing under 96 and Article 108, in this floor of the House, there are no government senators. What the Constitution recognizes under Article 108 is majority and minority. Is it in order for the Kiambu senator to refer government senators? Is it in order?
Senator Thangwa, can you use the correct language? It's a majority or minority?
Madam Speaker, as I was saying that I'm not sure whether to support or to oppose, because when you see the majority side of this House, that's always fight for the same government. Even when you mention the name Ruto, they'll come up with a point of order. When you mention that name, there will always a point of order, Mr. Speaker. Today, they are telling us to oppose the government that they have always been defending here. So I'm a little bit conflicted, Madam Speaker. And as I was saying, that is one of the reasons. I'm trying to understand what they're trying to do. But number two, Madam Speaker, number two, the PS for Environment wrote to the same committee on 25th of July this year, a few days ago, telling the committee, I have withdrawn the regulations. Give me a bit of time to go and conduct fresh public participation. So, Madam Speaker, the government is willing to do fresh public participation. But here, we are being told, let's nullify. So that's what I'm saying, I'm for sure not understanding. But I will support them for only one reason. Support the annulment. Because, Madam Speaker, this public participation, which is very important that we consult Kenyans frequently, was done 7 years ago. And those who do or conduct public participation are from 18 and above. So if we say somebody was 17 years then, today they are 24, Madam Speaker. So that means there's a group of people that would want to comment on this issue. But that is not my point even, Madam Speaker. My point is, we understand, because we need to consult Kenyans frequently, and we understand Kenyans change their mind, Madam Speaker, it's good to keep on consulting them. Because even as we stand here, there are people we voted for in 2022, and we have already changed our mind. Those are 3 years ago. So, Madam Speaker, when it comes to 7 years ago, so many people changed their mind on this issue. Even those who are not consulted then, they are of age and they can be consulted today, Madam Speaker. So I'm only supporting them on that issue because we have been vindicated. People can change their mind in whatever time, Madam Speaker. So for now, I'm supporting them because of that. And we would want that the CS conducts fresh and inclusive public participations so that we can hear what Kenyans are saying, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you also recall that we passed a law called the Climate Change
Senator
Act.
Thangwa, just before you proceed, the last time I checked the records, I think you are a majority senator. So I think what we need to take into account that every senator here has the freedom to contribute as they wish.
Yes, Madam Speaker, but we rarely see that. Madam Speaker, I was saying that if you recall in 2023, this House plus the National Assembly, we passed or amended the Climate Change Act 2023. And they go in tandem with the same Act of Environment Management and Coordination Act, Madam Speaker. So if we dealt with with matters climate or matters environment in the Climate Act, then they could have probably affected these regulations that were enacted or that were drafted 7 years ago, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, some stakeholders say they were not consulted. And it is always nice, and that's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm not understanding. The majority, call me in there, but I know myself, Madam Speaker. I don't understand why they are so much into it that this time we want to listen to the people. But on some instances, Madam Speaker, when we are on this floor, nobody wants to listen to the people. And that's what we have been saying, Madam Speaker. But we have indicated, and we are happy. And this should be the spirit, that everything that comes to this floor, let the people be listened to. Let the people be consulted. Let there be public participation, Madam Speaker. And that's what they're saying, Madam Speaker. It has been quoted out there, skiza ground, Madam Speaker. People should be listened to at whatever level, at whatever aspect, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what you are calling for by annulling these regulations, Madam Speaker, is that we call for fresh, inclusive engagement. That's all, Madam Speaker, and I support the annulment.
Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to start by, applauding the Committee on Delegated Legislation led by Gataya Mofire for this bold decision that has led the House to rally behind the entire committee, that when something is wrong, we as a leadership have a responsibility to say that it is wrong. Honorable Speaker, the key reason why the committee has decided that we annul these regulations is because the ministry responsible is bringing to us regulations claiming that participation of the people was had 7 years ago. That is in 2018, Honorable Speaker. Very many things have changed between now and 2018. In fact, Honorable Speaker, I don't think that 7 years ago I had just been appointed as SG of ODM. There's been a long period. This is my 8th year there. There's a lot of things that have changed, including in the political space. Speaker, just for perspective and to understand how important it is for the government to understand that when Parliament passes a law, it is the responsibility of government to operationalize that law so that the people can enjoy the benefits of that legislation. It is unconscionable to go 7-10 years without actually having actualized the law. And I want to give this House the most poignant of examples, Honorable Speaker. There is a bill that we passed as a Parliament in 2017 called the National Coroners Service Bill. In the current context of the discussions about police brutality and the killings that are attributable to the security forces, Honorable Speaker, and the difficulty that the Independent Policing Oversight Authority is facing investigating these crimes and actually bringing rogue officers to book, Honorable Speaker, it is unconscionable that 8 years later somebody is sitting on the regulations that would operationalize the National Coroners Service Bill. This particular bill, Honorable Speaker, would require mandatory reporting of all deaths and setting up of a coroner's service that would investigate all violent and sudden and suspicious deaths and make it easier for IPOA and the prosecutorial powers to actually go after the rogue police officers. Honorable Speaker, I am happy that in this particular House, out of the NADCO process, one of the NADCO bills, we have made a proposal to criminalize or to put criminal penalty on people whose responsibility it is to bring these regulations and who either neglect, fail, or refuse to come up with the regulations or sit on them. I was told a story, Honorable Speaker, that there exists a situation in this country that the head of public service has abrogated himself the right to approve gazette notices and the gazettement of regulations. Now, as far as I understand the legislative process, Honorable Speaker, the head of public service has no legal basis or constitutional basis to be the one to determine the contents of regulations when they are gazetted, or if at all they are gazetted. It is something that needs to be looked into, Honorable Speaker, because these issues are critical. These issues are critical, Honorable Speaker. When we talk about the specter of extrajudicial killings, people think we are just saying because we like to oppose everything that government is doing. But they have consequences on the standing of the country and the nation that is Kenya on the world stage. Just recently we were told, Honorable Speaker, that the US Congress is now reviewing the major NATO ally status of Kenya, and part of the review will cover these cases of abductions, torture, and violence against civilians. It has become difficult for us to find justice against the rogue police officers who have killed our young people because of failure by people in government to actually put in place regulations for important bills, such as the coroner's service bill. Speaker, I will not take more time than that, just to appreciate our colleagues in that committee, chaired by Mofire, Senator Faki, Maanzo Montet, and the others, including Boy Juma, for putting a foot down. And the point that the senator for Nyabira was making, Honorable Speaker, which I thought was misunderstood, is that every single opportunity, we as a House must validate our space in the constitutional order, because there exists separation of powers. The executive should not know how the House will treat a proposal that comes from them before the proposal lands on the floor, because there is an expectation that we've been given constitutional power by the people to give an objective view of every single proposal that has come from the executive, so that it doesn't matter if I was elected on the ruling party or the party that is in opposition. I, as a member of this House exercising that legislative power, at the very minimum should give Kenyans an objective review of that proposal before I say nay or yay. Speaker, Khalwale has just informed me that the hospital where my placenta was cut has now been shut down. And it reminded me of the debate about Senator Kajwang's former university.
Senator, it's the placenta of your mother.
The placenta is shared by the mother and the child. I don't think any party can claim whose placenta it is. It is also mine, and I can text my mother here to confirm whose placenta it was.
Proceed, Senator.
But anyway, it reminded me of that debate, Honorable Speaker. I don't know if you recall, when Moi University was facing closure. And Senator Kajwang, who went to Moi University, was asking, now what will I tell people? When they ask me, which school did you go to? How can you make reference to an institution that does not exist anymore? So I am finding myself in the same dilemma as the senator from Mutembei, Honorable Speaker, that now I can no longer convince people that I was born in a decent faith-run institution, Honorable Speaker, because it has been closed down. And we must do everything. We must do everything. Because in 1982, Honorable Speaker, to find an institution such as that was able to safely deliver somebody who can become a senator for Nairobi, it was not easy, Honorable Speaker. So it breaks my heart that has befallen that hospital, and all it takes is for this government to ensure that the system they have put in place when it comes to management of our healthcare, it works. If it works, you don't need to defend it. You see, this is the problem I have, Honorable Speaker. Everybody can see when something is working, and if you defend it so hard, and the people in the villages there. I was in a very rural village called Luhome, somewhere in Saboti, Honorable Speaker, over the weekend. And I can tell you, the question was put to those women. They have lost Linda Mama. SHA is no longer working. It doesn't work for them. So why do we insist, instead of just taking back this feedback and tweaking the system, the way that CBK dealt with the questions that were raised about voiding of payments, and they have told us that they have taken steps to ensure that it will no longer be possible for county officials to void payments. That is the sort of government we want, a government that just listens to criticism and takes corrective measures. I was very pleased myself when, after bringing the question of university accommodation fees here, the ministry actually took steps to correct that. That is what we expect from a government that is responsive, not just being defensive and sending hecklers to heckle us down here in Parliament whenever we raise these issues. People like, I don't want to mention them, Honorable Speaker. I've finished. Thank you.
Senator Tabitha Mutinda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I rise, first of all, to really appreciate the Committee of Delegated Legislation, led by none other than the Senator of Tharaka Nithi, Mofaya. Madam Speaker, I was just looking at the issues that the committee looked at, you know, as far as, yes, we are trying to address that the issue of public participation, which was lastly conducted in 2015. 10 years down the line, Madam Speaker, according to the report that I've looked into, although I've had colleagues talk about 2018, but just to clarify from their report, they're saying that it was the year 2015, Madam Speaker. I've also tried to look at the issues that they were able to raise, Madam Speaker, and they are very valid issues. One of them, Madam Speaker, being on the issues of the cost or the fees that needs to be charged. These are fees that had been proposed those 10 years ago, Madam Speaker. We are 10 years down the line and things have changed. And the committee felt that there needs to be an intervention as far as these fees are concerned, because the fees that had been proposed at that particular time were on the higher side, Madam Speaker. The other issues that I've also looked at that the committee was also able to raise was the issue of obstruction by community members from accessing the resources in the forest, Madam Speaker, and the committee felt that this needs to have changed because it protects their interest as a community, and there should not be obstruction in them being able to access. These are very valid concerns, Madam Speaker, and these issues can only be addressed when proper public fair participation is done, and the people are given an opportunity to be able to air their views, give their proposals, offer their submissions, Madam Speaker, so that some of these issues can be able to be addressed. And it is good that institutions respect the process of legislation, the process that requires maximum public participation. Madam Speaker, that is why we normally, as committees, have budgets of media budgets. These are budgets that are entitled to each committee, whereby the committee is able to advertise to the public for those who wish to participate in the public participation, Madam Speaker, so that they are able to maximally bring in their views. The committee is able to look at, into those issues and also be able to you know, give guidance or see what fits here, what does not fit here, and all that. That is the main reason, Madam Speaker. And it is important, Madam Speaker, to say, if it was just in our space to legislate without public participation, then, I mean, it will not really be fair to the public, because these laws are not for us as individuals, as members. These laws are for this country, Madam Speaker, and they cut across for every Kenyan, Madam Speaker. And so advertisement of the same is very important. Madam Speaker, I've seen also whereby the same committee, delegated committee, Madam Speaker, was able to question where, if the ministry had prepared and submitted a regulatory impact statement, and there was no documentation that had been provided to show whether the public was notified, Madam Speaker. And the committee was able to trace that there was no documentation that could be traced at all. Very valid concerns, meaning that the committee was able to dig deeper. First, on if there was any documentation, and two, analyzing the regulations that are currently in place. Are they worthy to be in place in this year, 2025? Madam Speaker, further then, when you look at the years that we're talking about from 2015 to date, when we normally invite most of these public offices or these different stakeholders, in most cases they are normally accompanied by their legal teams. And so I wonder, I really wonder where the legal department has been, because this is laxity for the legal department in the same ministry. They should be the ones advising the minister. They should be the ones advising as far as all these concerns, you know, are. Because if they had done their part, then we would not be actually here looking at this nullification. And I'm bringing this because, Madam Speaker, they should be able now and should work with speed with the same leadership of the committee to ensure that they submit the right changes through the same public participation and properly advise the same ministry so that these changes can be adapted with the current place where we are today in 2025. And I speak from where I sit as also a member of the climate caucus led by ours truly, Senator Kajwang. Because today in 2025, we are speaking matters climate change. These are issues that need to be captured in the same regulations, Madam Speaker. And I feel it's just a matter of the people, the officials or officers who are mandated to be able to undertake their legal mandate have not been up to the task as required, Madam Speaker. And it should be known that public participation is not specific to any, it is open to all Kenyans, to all stakeholders who want to have and put their input as far as specific legislation is concerned, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as the debate has been going on, I've been keen to hear my colleagues when they talked about the issue of SHA, Madam Speaker. And this is a very important discussion. I speak as a member of the Health Committee, Madam Speaker, and we've been out there doing our oversight, visiting different hospitals, level 5 hospital, the county, sub-county hospitals, and I personally have been keen on getting to understand, is SHA working? And if it's not working, what is the challenge? And Madam Speaker, in most, and as recent as Kilifi County, where we were actually last weekend, one of my concerns was from the desk of, is it the desk of admissions, the person who is in charge in terms of receiving payments and also the issues of SHA. And we were able to ask as a committee, is SHA working? The response was yes, it is working. The only challenge that was in place is that there was no digitalization. People had to really leave their ID cards, be given a small form, they fill up, but also the same clients or the patients who are in that particular hospital, we were able to interact with them and ask them, is SHA working? And according to them, they said yes, and they are sorted and the process is ongoing, Madam Speaker. There should be conversations of, this is the specific challenge. It cannot just be generalized that it is not working. It is good to say what specifically is not working. What is the exact problem? What is the exact challenge, Madam Speaker? But not just a generalization that a system is not working. I've had my senator talk about the hospital that he proudly says he was born in, which is good, and asked, what will I tell the future generation, my generation, if this hospital does not exist? It's the same question I asked today. What will we say if we still continue allowing people to put fire in this country, to burn this country? Then where will we say we are coming from? Which Kenya will we call home, Madam Speaker? It is important that as much as we are highlighting the problem, we highlight the problem, and at the same time, offer solution unto the same problem. It cannot just be negative critique without a solution. Leadership is identifying the problem, and leadership is also offering the same problem on the same platform. We are not going to get out here in Senate after 2027 with certificate of either who was shouting more than the other, who had more point of orders than the other. It is not about that. It is what we've been able to deliver as a house. There is no law that is for Senator Boni Halwale. There is no law that is for Senior Senator Oburu Odinga. This law is for us as a country, as the people of this nation. That should sink very well, Madam Speaker. But it's not about the highest shouting person. With those many and few, I really appreciate the committee on the same and urge them through their leadership to fast track that these amendments and these regulations will be up to date. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Kajwang.
Madam Speaker, I rise to support the recommendation of the Committee on Delegated Legislation that the House should annul the Environmental Management and Coordination, Strategic and Integrated Environmental Assessments and Environmental Audits Regulations 2025 of 2025. Madam Speaker, I have looked at the two main reasons that have been advanced by the committee, and I do agree that those reasons are solid enough for this House to be moved to annul those regulations. The first reason given is lack of public participation. Public participation on these regulations were done in the year 2018. And Madam Speaker, if you live in this country, you know that the political environment and terrain in this country has changed significantly from 2018 to date. Perhaps even the aspirations of Kenyans have changed. Perhaps even the policy and focus of government has changed. In fact, it has changed significantly. In 2018, Madam Speaker, we are talking of the Big Four. And 2018, Madam Speaker, one very interesting thing is that Senator Boni Khalwale and I were riding on the top of a similar vehicle when we were welcoming Baba from the United States of America. And we were tear gassed, we were clobbered for 6 hours. When we got to Gikomba, Madam Speaker, the traders in Gikomba came out with the sticks and rungus and were generally very violent. Senator Boni Khalwale disappeared. I've not known to date how he got out of my car, but the situation was very tense. That was 2018. Today, Boni Khalwale is a chief whip of the government. And so the views given in 2018, really, Madam Speaker, we cannot use them to support or to augment regulations in the year 2025. Madam Speaker, we have moved full cycle from Big Four. We went to handshake. We went to Tanga regime. We got into a new government that started with bottom up. And then from bottom up, it was, after bottom up, it was, before it was shareholders. It was a government of shareholders. After becoming a government of shareholders, it then became a government whose, to whom the most urgent national priority was to eject the deputy president. And then after that, it became the government of broad base. And now, at least, the nation has stabilized. Madam Speaker, you cannot use public participation of 2018 to support regulations today. A lot of things have changed in this country. And in fact, Madam Speaker, to be honest, if, assuming the former deputy president was involved in public participation in 2018 in these regulations, do you think we will hold the same views that he held in 2018 today? Definitely not. And that is why public participation must be timely. It must be current. It must be relevant. It needs to be fresh. It needs to be like news. On that basis, Madam Speaker, I agree with the committee that these regulations must be annulled and should be rejected. The second basis is that when the regulations were published, the fees and tariffs were not included. And Madam Speaker, that is an extremely material feature or aspect of regulations that cannot be ignored. Because the Statutory Instruments Act has a very clear definition of what a statutory instrument is. And Madam Speaker, for avoidance of doubt, it talks about any rule, any order, any regulation, any direction, any form, any tariff of costs or fees. You cannot exclude tariff of costs and fees from such regulation and then give the Cabinet Secretary the power to impose that. Madam Speaker, we must remember that delegated legislation or statutory instruments, I think in the UK they call it secondary legislation. It is this parliament that has donated the power that has been given to it by the people to the executive. Madam Speaker, sometimes, and this debate has been going on in the Commons, there's been concern about what is called skeleton legislation, where Parliament passes a framework, a skeleton, and then says the Cabinet Secretary shall prescribe regulations. We did that with the Health Acts. When we were in Turkana, Madam Speaker, we were in a rush because the President told us that something good was brewing and that if we passed the 4 Health Acts, then everyone was going to get free medication in this country. We are going to get free health insurance. And Madam Speaker, every time I sit in the committee, I chair of Public Accounts Committee, I see governors present their receiver of revenue statements. And they come and tell me they are proud that they've grown their own source revenue. And they have grown it from hospitals. Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 hospitals. And I ask myself, if governors are making so much money out of hospitals, then where is this promise and dream of free and universal health coming from? I expect that in the next financial year, every governor would be reporting 0 as fees collected from people in level 1, level 2, level 3, and perhaps even level 4 hospital. But look at all the counties, including my own county. We have grown our own source revenue beyond 1 billion Kenya shillings on the strength of hospital fees. Why are we still collecting money from the poor people? And yet we are supposed to be having one universal healthcare system and insurance in this republic. It's because we passed skeleton legislation. We were in a rush to get out of Turkana. We were in a rush to pass the legislation. And then we said the Cabinet Secretary shall prescribe and shall come up with regulations. Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate Senator Mofaya, who chairs this committee. And I keep reminding him that this is one of the most powerful committees of this House, because it ensures that that power that has been donated to the executive cannot be abused. It has been abused grossly in the past. I can give you a few examples, Madam Speaker. I've given the example of the Health Acts. We passed in this House the Fisheries Management and Development Act. That was in the year 2016. And it is one of the proudest laws. I just come into Parliament, and I was so proud that we are coming up with a regulatory and legislative framework that was going to open up our blue economy, and that was going to make our people rich, that was going to make our people benefit from the natural resources that have been put in the seas and the lakes and the oceans that we have around us. To date, Madam Speaker, you have regulations that have not been brought to this House. And as a result, the Fisheries Management and Development Act cannot be enforced. Indeed, Madam Speaker, it is an insult to the fisher folk in this country when we heard the other day that the Fish Marketing Authority and Kenya Fisheries Services are some of the state organizations that are bound to be disbanded because they are offering no value. Madam Speaker, when we came up with specific parastatals and bodies to support specific crops. For example, the Dairy Board supports the dairy sector. I've not heard anyone say the Dairy Board should be disbanded. The Coffee Board, the Tea Board. Madam Speaker, when Mwai Kibaki became president, the policy was consolidation. And we came up with one super agency called AFA, Agriculture, Food, Fisheries, and Livestock Authority. But along the way, it was clear that AFA did not have the capacity to deliver the changes and the dream that was in the strategy for revitalization of agriculture that was espoused by Mwai Kibaki. As a result, people started divesting. Fisheries divested, coffee divested, tea divested, dairy divested, even livestock. I believe there's a livestock bill before this House. Why should the other sectors divest? And then when it comes to our fish, we are being told that that is going to be too small a parastatal, and that parastatal, whatever it is doing, can be done by the ministry. If that is the case, then let's collapse everything else so that we are equal. Madam Speaker, the same absurdity extended to the Cotton Development Act. This House, this Parliament, passed the Cotton Development Bill, which was sponsored by Senator Betsienko. Both houses agreed. The bill was sent to the President for assent. The President did not assent on time. And then 3 months later, as an afterthought, the President returned the bill back to Parliament with a memorandum. And what was the memorandum saying? That it is not government policy to establish additional boards, that the cotton development and management can be done by the line ministry. We don't hear the same argument when it comes to other crops and products. Madam Speaker, I hope that the Agriculture Committee, where I sit, has reported back to this House that the committee rejected the President's memorandum because they were filed outside time. So that what now we expect is gazettement of the Cotton Development Act, and for its implementation so that cotton farmers can also be considered to be part of this republic, just the same way farmers of other crops and products have been given protection, have been given autonomy, have been given statutory independence. That is what we expect for cotton and we expect for fisheries. In this parliament, Madam Speaker, you have seen regulations have been circulated to honorable members regarding the Parliamentary Service Commission constituency office regulations. Madam Speaker, that has been the biggest joke in this parliament, that this Senate has failed to influence the publication of regulations that will ensure that the office of the Senate is treated slightly differently from the office of the Member of National Assembly. The reason why, and perhaps the public needs to know this, that a senator like Senator of Nairobi, who has how many constituencies? Has 17 constituencies. The money that is sent to support the operations of the senator from Nairobi is the same amount of money that is sent to a single member constituency. And yet it takes care of 17 electoral units. I take care of 8, Madam Speaker. The resource, the budget, the envelope I have for staff and operations, and even office rent, can only keep me in one place. I cannot be present in all the 8 constituencies or all the 40 wards. Why? Because our hands are tied by that regulation that defined our offices as constituency offices. Madam Speaker, I have been in this argument from the 11th Parliament, when Kiraitu Murungi attempted to move an amendment to the Parliamentary Service Commission Act to establish alternative structures that would give specialized focus and attention to the Senate. It was killed in the 11th Parliament. In the 12th Parliament, we tried again. We even went to the United States of America, Madam Speaker. We visited about 5 states. We went through state legislatures to understand the relationship between state legislatures, to understand the relationship and operations of Congress and the House of Representatives. We came back with a report. Again, we proposed amendments to those regulations. They were again vetoed. They were actually vetoed by the other house, and that time, our late departed friend, the late senator for Baringo, the Honorable Cheptumo, was the chair of that committee. I am glad that before his demise, he had the decency and he had the courage to apologize in this house, because he said when he was on that side, he never understood what happened in the Senate. So, Madam Speaker, statutory instruments and delegated legislation has been used and has been abused, but people think that it is the laziness of representatives in these houses that leads to that abuse, that we are quick to pass a framework or we are quick to pass a skeleton of a law, and then we leave it to the cabinet secretaries to fill the blanks. And some of them really abused that. One of the abused statutory instruments was the Equalization Fund Management Regulations. Madam Speaker, those regulations came to this House at the end of the 12th Parliament. There was a lot of pressure. There was a handshake scenario. And then the chair of that committee was the senator from Mombasa, Senator Faki. And so Senator Faki had to convince the House to pass regulations that excluded senators from the Equalization Fund. And the regulations created structures at county level where the money from the Equalization Fund would be managed through a county technical committee chaired by the county commissioner, where the county government had only one representative, one CEC. But the NGCDF also had a representative in that county technical committee. It went down to the constituency technical committee, all the way down to the ward technical committee. Today, many of us are unaware of what the Equalization Fund is doing in our respective areas. Even governors do not know what the Equalization Fund is doing. Why? Because the money is considered to be national government that is managed through national government administrative structures. And that is why yesterday we had this problem, where the National Assembly has come up with a parallel bill on the Equalization Fund, because they still think that that money is theirs, that money is for their control, but we allowed it to happen, Madam Speaker. I wish Senator Faki was here. He would have told us that he promised this House that let us pass these regulations to allow access to the fund, because the fund had not been drawn for a long time for lack of regulations. And he promised, and he told us here that the government had promised that we're going to bring amendments. To date, I do not think the amendments that have been brought. And so that is why we must annul these regulations so that no one promises us that they'll be amended. They will never be amended out of experience. Madam Speaker, let me finalize by calling upon my colleagues that whatever we are doing here in this House is our primary responsibility as elected leaders. Madam Speaker, a poll was conducted in the United Kingdom to find out what the public expects of members of parliament. Lawmaking was like the last priority or the last expectation. If a similar poll was to be conducted here in Kenya, Madam Speaker, I can tell you that the people we represent, their expectation of a member of parliament, including senator and member of National Assembly, expectation number one is to build classrooms. Expectation number two, to issue bursaries. Number three, to attend funerals. Number four, to issue handouts without fail. Number five is to attend rallies where you can insult imaginary and real enemies. And number 5, 6 could be issuance of statements. Lawmaking is the least glamorous and is the least considered job of a member here. Madam Speaker, I see and I admire even the new members of this parliament. Senator Sifuna, he joined in this 13th parliament. He is here not just because he's the whip, but he believes that the core mandate, the critical duty of a legislator is to legislate, not empowerment rallies, even though I saw him doing an empowerment one the other day. But it is not the money that caught my attention. It was the conversation that caught my attention. But that's a story for another day. But he knows that being in this House is the reason why the people of Nairobi elected him. Madam Speaker, the senator from Nandi, he is in this House religiously, even though he's a bit of a noisy one, but he knows that that is the core mandate of a senator or a representative who has been brought here. Let me call upon my brothers and sisters who have been elected that at the end of the day, the funerals you contribute to, the handouts you give, they'll be like no one will remember them, Madam Speaker. Out of my experience, it is the last person to do a Harambee who is remembered. The Harambee you did in 2021, 2022, 2023. In 2026, your opponent will do a bigger Harambee. He'll come with Farouk to do a bigger Harambee. All your small Harambees will have been forgotten. But your record and active participation in Parliament will live on. Madam Speaker, today we went to do prayers for Phoebe Asio. And everyone reminds Phoebe Asio for the motion that she introduced in this House that called for gender equity, that called for opening up the space. People did not eulogize her because she did a Harambee somewhere and donated desks, or because she sorted out some boys in some center. People like Martin Shikuku are remembered for their speeches and statements in this House. People like George Anyona, it's not because of their donations. And so as we head into the weekend, and I know some of my colleagues are going to board choppers and are going for empowerment things, please, let us focus on policy, legislation, regulation that can provide a level playing field for all Kenyans to be able to access opportunities, for all Kenyans to get empowerment. The idea of donating 64 shillings to women groups or 1,000 shillings to women group is tokenism, is a handout culture. And Madam Speaker, the party that I subscribe to, the ODM party, has always been against using Harambee as a model for development, because Harambee fuels corruption. When someone whose salary at net is 150,000 is donating 5 million in 1 month, that is corruption looking at you straight in the eye. And Madam Speaker, we are not going to grow this country if we continue with this pretense of empowerment rallies and empowerment Harambees. That cannot be our model for development. Madam Speaker, I support yes.
Senator Kajwang, do you want to be informed?
Cautiously, yes. Very cautiously.
Madam Speaker, I want to inform my chair, Park, and I like his eloquence. that the ODM Secretary General, Senator Sifunda, donated 1 million in Saboti, Amis. So does it mean, if he says they don't subscribe, does it mean there is that there should be clarity on what he say?
Senator Kajwang.
Madam Speaker, that is a frivolous point of information. My Secretary General declared the source of his contribution. He declared, including members of this House, and so he fully accounted for it. Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I support the report of the committee.
Senator Seki.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also take this opportunity to put my voice on this report on the delegated legislation chaired by Honorable Mofaya and the members on this issue of to null the report on this environment report. Honorable Speaker, I sincerely speaking want to support and even thank the committee for going against what is not supposed to be, because you see they are also working under pressure. But this is a report that has been submitted to this House with the stakeholders engagement, where they have engaged the stakeholders also informed the committee on the regulation that the state corporation has been using, or even the PS or the ministry has been using, without passing through passing through Parliament. Honorable Speaker, it is true that government need to use or even to regularize or operationalize regulations that have gone through this House, Honorable Speaker. And in most cases, we have seen a number of regulations, guidelines that are not going through, that have not come through this House, being operationalized by the ministries or state corporations, and it becomes a very big problem to the members of the public and to the entire nation. For in terms of charges, in terms of punitive charges, or even penalties, or through financial or even charges that are there in that regulations. And it is important always for us to have, as a House that is constitutionalized, given mandate to go through these regulations and even acts of Parliament to come up with what is important. And that is why we are supposed to go through public participation as a Senate, also as Parliament also. So it is always important that if this committee come in with a resolution that we null these regulations, it is important that we go through quite in order. And Honorable Speaker, I would be it would be very interesting if this committee also will go through several regulations that are used within the several acts. Honorable Speaker, it will be very interesting to look at the regulation that is being used through with the SHA right now. It will be very interesting for the chair of this committee to go through the regulations that are being used to operationalize SHA. The same case to the regulations that are being used to operationalize Hustler Fund. Honorable Speaker, these are the important regulations that we really need to go through as this Parliament. And as a committee, I really want to urge and request this committee to go through the regulations that are being used in several acts that we've passed when the ministries and state corporations are implementing these acts. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, I also want to support the committee recommendations to null this report. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Senators, there are no more requests, so I call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you, Honorable Madam Speaker. I want to sincerely thank my fellow members for having generously contributed to this very important debate. This debate, Madam Speaker, has generated a lot of interest from across the divide. Very many members have enriched the report of the committee. And as the chairman of this committee, Madam Speaker, I'm very, very impressed because the core business of this House, Madam Speaker, is to register it. And this House today has observed that law, that's power. And I'm happy, Madam Speaker, because I don't want to go into details of why we recommended for an element of the report, because that matter has been properly it has been properly processed by quite a number of debaters who have been able to process the whole process. So, Madam Speaker, to sum up, I would request you that pursuant to section standing order number 66(3) of the Senate, standing order